Friends, we're continuing on in the Gospel of Luke, some of the great stories of Jesus and some of the great parables of Jesus as he approaches Jerusalem. We are on the countdown to Christmas season, Advent, a little bit more than a week away. I will announce now, I've kind of forgot to put in the bulletin, that next Sunday we will celebrate All Saints Sunday, commemorate All Saints Sunday, remember those of us, the many cloud of witnesses, the great saints of yesteryear who have passed on, either sleeping or with God, depending on your faith, who we want to mention and lift up. Years past, we've done photos. I think this year we'll just bring names. If you think about, it's a good week to think about, and I know you probably already do think about the people who are no longer with you in person, but are always with God and in your heart. We recognize that we are here and are faithful because of people in our past. And all these great saints that have passed, not just this year, but in years past, we want to recognize. We need to remember people's names. We need to remember that we are not alone in the world, and that this world is here, and we are a part of it because of so many great, wonderful, and faithful people before us. So that's next Sunday. But we're approaching the Christmas season, but we have a couple more weeks of just enjoying the wonderful words of Jesus, like this teaching here. Then Jesus told them a parable about the need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, "Grant me justice against my opponent." For a while he refused. But later he said to himself, "Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice so that she may not wear me out by continually coming." And the Lord said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?" When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? To a point, what do you do when you don't get what you deserve? Emily and I like watching a baking show called The Great British Baking Show. It's on PBS. It's just a bunch of home bakers cooking, and we kind of find it thrilling. And one every week is claimed as a star baker, and one is sent home until there's one winner, and we're catching up, and we're still in season 2. And last night Matt went home. He's done pretty well, but Matt went home. He had a bad night. It was a hard night. But he knew at the end of it. Sometimes you don't know, but he knew. He goes, I'm sorry to go, but the judge has made a right decision. Doesn't that make it easier? It makes it easier when I deserve what I get. The boys come home, and they have the report card. And Malin was a little upset. And I said, "Well, is that what you deserve?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, did you try as hard as you can?" "No." I said, "Well, what are you going to do next time?" "I'm going to try harder." And I say, you know what? If you don't get a good grade next semester, but you try as hard as you can, you know that you got what you deserved. And that helps. Getting what you deserve helps. What happens when you don't get what you deserve? Like this woman here. This woman's not getting what she deserves. Jesus sets up the parable very simply. He says there's the most powerful person in society, a judge. And the Old Testament makes it very clear. If you're going to be a judge, you're acting on behalf of God. And you need to have two qualities if you're a judge. You need to fear God and you need to care for people. That's what the Old Testament says a judge needs to do. And Jesus sets it up that this is a bad judge. Neither fears God nor cares what anyone thinks, but he's powerful. And then we have the most powerless person in society, the widow, the orphan, the immigrant among us, those who have no strong male connections to protect them, no strong family connections, and no cultural entitlement, no national identity to protect them. We got the powerful and the powerless at odds. What do you do when you don't get what you deserve? Most of us are civilized folk. I'm a fairly civilized person. I don't like conflict too much. I don't like causing issue too much. I tend to be the kind of person who's like, man, that didn't work out in my favor. I sigh and I stew over a little bit. I might be anxious over it. I might lose some nights of sleep, but I'll move on. I'll move on because I don't want to cause too much problem. Also, I've never really been in a situation where I've needed to fight too badly for something. But people who persist, and in persisting create disturbance. And in disturbing people create conflict, both external and internal. They're provocateurs. Is that a word? To provoke? Is provocateurs a word? Do you like provocateurs? Do you like provocateurs? This woman's a provocateur. Now it's just a parable. It's just a parable. And Jesus says a parable about persisting in prayer, about keep praying. So he sets it up in a reverse, kind of an antithesis. The judge who is bad responds not because he has a change of heart, but because he doesn't want to be bothered anymore. And God who is good is going to respond out of the goodness of God's heart. And where this judge delays, God who is good, do you think God is going to delay? Do you think God is going to delay? But here's my problem. I think God has delayed. See, if this was just a simple parable about the persistence of prayer, see, Jesus is a genius and we're not, so we're always trying to play catch up. If this is a simple prayer about persistence, Jesus said, listen, there's a judge and he was horrible, and there's a woman who didn't get what she deserved, and she kept on knocking and banging on his door all hours of the night and wouldn't stop and kept on badgering him until he just gave her what she wanted, even though he didn't care about her. And God, who is good, is going to give you who pray eventually what you deserve. You hear the difference? Eventually. That's what the text from Joel and so many other texts talk about. In fact, there's a great psalm, Psalm 37. It goes on about how good God is eventually. Just be patient, let God handle it. Eventually, God will be good. That seems pretty honest to me. See, if it's just about persistence, continue to pray. And eventually, God will answer your prayer. But see, Jesus throws a monkey wrench in this parable. He said, God will answer without delay. And that makes me start to think and question, well, what's his point? Because, in my opinion, God is delaying. In fact, I believe the parable was told because people are wondering, where's God? If God is so good and God cares about us, where is God? Or is God just not care? God just not care. And we're on our own. We have to do the best we can. And survival of the fittest, the dog-eat-dog world. Beware the dog. Will he delay long in helping them? Well, have you seen the images of Aleppo in Syria? Have we talked about Iraq? What about all the refugees that are still waiting for home and probably waiting for homes for the rest of their lives? Let's be honest. Refugees all over the world that will never find a home. They'll never be welcomed. There was a report about a 12-year-old boy who was caught under a tree in the hurricane in Haiti, and the doctors tried to save his life. He died not of his wounds, but of tetanus. Tetanus. The doctor was like, we live 130 miles from Miami. Is that about the same distance between here and Nashville? A little closer, maybe. And he died of tetanus, something that we've been able to solve for pennies. Why is this happening? Where's God? Why the delay? I think God has delayed. And that makes me wonder about whether this is really about prayer. And if about prayer, what does prayer look like? See, I hope you get on your knees. If not truly on your knees, which I don't do, my boys would make fun of me, but the knees in my own heart, right? I get on the knees in my own heart and I say, Lord, what's going on? Where are you? Why the delay? I used to wonder why people wanted Jesus to come back. I go, why do you want Jesus to come back? Life is awesome. And my life is awesome. It's pretty self-centered of me, though. My life is better than awesome. I have a much better life than all of you. Well, why? But the problem. But if you start looking around, a lot of people's lives aren't awesome. And I don't know if I want Jesus to come back, quite frankly, yet. But I understand why people pray that prayer. I think I understand a lot better why people pray that prayer. Jesus, where are you? Why this suffering? Why these children caught in concrete buildings? Why these kids getting cholera? Why these children growing up in inner city war zones? Why Native American children on reservations committing suicide because there's no hope and no way out? Why? Where are you? Why haven't you come back to fix it yet? Why the delay? Why the delay? Jesus tells another parable about persistence in prayer, and I think combined we start getting an image that this isn't only about prayer, but it's about a specific kind of prayer, the prayer of action. He says there's a man who was sleeping, he was at his home, and a visitor came late at night, and he didn't have any food prepared for the visitor. And basic morality, but specifically the hospitality code of the ancient Near East was a stranger comes, you take care of him, a friend comes, you take care of him, you feed him. Doesn't matter what hour of the night. You would do the same thing. But he didn't have any food, which sets it up as someone who is what? Probably poor. So he goes next door and he knocks on his neighbor's door, and he wakes his neighbor up and he says, neighbor, I need some bread. And the neighbor's like, leave me alone, it's the middle of the night, man. My kids are sleeping. But he won't stop knocking. And the guy gets up and gives him some bread, not because he felt like it was the right thing to do, but because he didn't want to be bothered anymore. It's a very similar parable. But in both situations, there is a person in need who is supposed to be helped, and there is a person who can help who doesn't. And there is a person who demands that something be done about it. There is a person who demands that something be made right. When do you demand that something be made right? Can I tell you, I was in the regional assembly last week or the week before. It was a great assembly. About 200 disciples of Christ from Tennessee were gathered together. Very multiracial, very celebratory, a wonderful opportunity to converse, be together, pray together, and worship together. And I served on a panel. We were talking about race relations, both culturally and in our own church. And I was asked to be on a panel a couple months ago, and I got a phone call from Elder Hayes that said, Fritz, I want you to serve on a panel talking about race relations. And I said, oh man, I most definitely don't want to do that. But he convinced me. He said, I said, I don't know anything about this topic. And he goes, well, that's why we want you. And I said, okay, this isn't going to go well for me. I just want you to be honest. Be an honest white male preacher. We're trying to have a diverse perspective. And I said, well, I can do that. So I was nervous. Sitting to my right is this amazing African-American woman preacher from Nashville. Sitting to my left is an amazing Korean or Asian American seminary student, and sitting to the left of her is an African American male preacher, the president of, I think, Dijon. They're incredible, amazing people. And here I am, the white male in the group talking about race. And we did fine. I hope I didn't embarrass myself too much. But what amazed me in that conversation is how clear-minded some people are about what is right and what is wrong and what is going on. Now, I don't share some of the same clarity they share, partly because of my perspective, partly for other reasons, but they're clear, and I envy that clarity. And I envy the power of purpose they have, and I envy the belief that they are doing what they know God knows is right. I envy that. It is powerful. They stand up and they say, this is what God wants. And they don't care if that bothers you. They don't care if that makes you uncomfortable. And they don't care if you don't like it, because God wants it. And I wonder to myself if there were more people like that standing up for what they believed that God wanted. Maybe not the same issue, but what's your issue? What are your issues? That they believe God wants is kids being kidnapped and sex trafficking. That happens in Knoxville. Is that something you're certain God doesn't want? Have you stood up and said, God doesn't want this? Why aren't you making noise about it? Or do you hear it on the news or read in the newspaper and be like, what a shame. I'm glad I've protected my children. I was downtown a couple months ago just driving out of town. It was midday on like a Tuesday. Nothing day. And in front of a government building, maybe it was a library, there were about 6 people, and they were holding posters, and I caught words: Israel, Palestine, U.S., money, military. And I gathered an image of why these provocateurs were standing on the corner of one road and another road on a no-way day, raising their signs to a community of people who don't care. You might not like that issue about the U.S. foreign policy towards Israel and Palestine, but I envy the fact that they're willing to stand up for what they believe God cares about, and they don't care if it makes you uncomfortable. They're going to demand justice, and I wonder if that is what the prayer Jesus is talking about. Someone who won't just stay on his or her knees, Lord, where are you? But stand up and speak the Lord's word. The Lord commands you. The Lord demands of you. The Lord is speaking through me to this situation. We're civilized people. Listen, look, we're quiet, polite, kind. We don't like conflict. I don't like it either. I'm not a good provocateur. But I wonder if there would be a lot less delay in God's justice if there were more of us who had clarity about what God wanted and had clarity about speaking God's mind. And I wonder if there is a delay because we're so often silent. Every provocateur who stood up for justice in any time has not been liked. After the I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King's public approval rating was 30%. The women who stood up for women's suffrage were in jail. They were jailed when World War I started for being provocateurs, causing dissension and lack of unity in the public sphere. When unity was needed, we have a common enemy, a common threat. Does Kaepernick bother you? Good. He's a provocateur. Do you like what he stands for? You don't have to. But he's kneeling, interestingly enough, for what he believes in. And he's dealing with the criticism. He's brave. You might think he's wrong, but he's brave. Black Lives Matter movement, you might think they're wrong, but they're brave. They're causing conflict. They're standing up for what they think God cares about. What do you care about? Is there a delay because we're not beating down enough doors? It was such an easy parable. Such an easy parable until Jesus said that God doesn't delay. So if God doesn't delay, why the holdup? Maybe we're the holdup. Maybe there's not enough women like this widow, or neighbors like that man who begged bread from a neighbor who didn't want to be bothered. Or enough people like Jesus. I don't think I would like Jesus. I'll just lay it out there. He never shut up. He never stopped talking. He never stopped caring for what he cared about. He always caused conflict wherever he went. He refused to back down. He spoke his mind. And that makes me uncomfortable. He demanded that people look at what God wants. Will the Son of Man find faith on earth? This isn't the quaint faith of civilized folk. This is the faith of people who know that God is watching, that God cares, and that God wants things done. Listen to a word from God to you this morning.